Behind the wholesome facade of this beloved 1960s sitcom lay jaw-dropping secrets that would make even Uncle Joe's get-rich-quick schemes seem tame. From murder victim casting controversies and on-set dental procedures to recycled Christmas scripts and a train that literally made actors seasick, Petticoat Junction's backstage reality was far more bizarre than anything that happened at the Shady Rest Hotel. Fact 1. Sharon Tate's Playboy scandal got her fired before filming. Long before Sharon Tate became tragically known as a victim of the Manson murders, she was supposed to be one of the wholesome Bradley sisters on Petticoat Junction. In 1963, when producer Paul Henning was casting his new rural comedy series, Tate seemed like the perfect choice to play Billie Joe Bradley, the flirtatious blonde daughter of the family that ran the Shady Rest Hotel. At the time, Sharon Tate was just 20 years old and relatively unknown in Hollywood, having appeared in small roles on shows like The Beverly Hillbillies, where she played one of Mr. Drysdale's secretaries. Martin Ransohoff, the head of Filmway's production company, had signed her to a 7-year contract and was looking for the right project to showcase her talents. When Petticoat Junction came along, it seemed like the ideal opportunity for the young actress to land her first major television role. The casting process went smoothly, and Tate was officially selected to join the show alongside the other Bradley sisters. Promotional photographs were even taken with her posing alongside the rest of the cast, showing what the original Petticoat Junction family would have looked like. Everything seemed set for Tate to begin her television career in the fictional town of Hooterville. However, CBS executives soon discovered something that would change everything. Before being cast on the show, Tate had posed for what were considered provocative photographs for magazines, including some revealing shots that would later appear in Playboy magazine. When network executives learned about these photos, they immediately panicked about how this would affect the wholesome, family-friendly image they wanted for Petticoat Junction. Without hesitation, CBS fired Sharon Tate before she ever filmed a single scene, and the role of Billie Joe Bradley went to Jeanine Riley instead. Ironically, those same Playboy photos that cost Tate her television job would later help establish her as a Hollywood sex symbol when they were published years later. Fact 2. The train made everyone seasick during filming. While viewers at home enjoyed watching the Hooterville Cannonball chug along the tracks each week, the actors filming inside that famous train were having a much less pleasant experience. The locomotive that appeared in studio scenes wasn't actually a real working train at all, but rather a cleverly constructed plastic shell that created one of the most uncomfortable working conditions in television history. For any scenes that took place inside the train car, where characters would be sitting and talking while supposedly traveling between Hooterville and Pixley, the cast had to perform on this fake train set that was built on a sound stage. Since the locomotive obviously couldn't actually move on its own, the production crew came up with what seemed like a simple solution to create the illusion of a moving train. They would have several crew members stand around the outside of the train car and physically shake the entire structure from side to side during filming. This manual shaking method was supposed to simulate the natural rocking motion that passengers would feel on a real moving train. But the reality was far from realistic or comfortable. The crew members would grab onto different parts of the train car and rock it back and forth with considerable force, creating an extremely jarring and unnatural movement that bore little resemblance to actual train travel. Bea Benaderet, who played the mother Kate Bradley and spent countless hours filming scenes inside this makeshift locomotive, became so frustrated with the uncomfortable conditions that she openly complained about the situation. In interviews, she described how the violent shaking motion made her and the other cast members feel genuinely nauseous while trying to perform their scenes, saying that when the train runs during filming, they all get seasick from the artificial movement. The irony was that this beloved symbol of simple, peaceful country life was actually making the actors physically ill behind the scenes, turning what should have been relaxing scenes into an endurance test for everyone involved in the production. Fact 3. Uncle Joe's actor pulled teeth on set. Edgar Buchanan, who played the lovably lazy Uncle Joe Carson on Petticoat Junction, brought a very unusual skill set to the television production that went far beyond his acting abilities. Long before he ever stepped foot on a Hollywood soundstage, Buchanan had earned his Doctor of Dental Surgery degree from North Pacific College School of Dentistry in 1928 and had practiced as a licensed dentist for over a decade. When Buchanan first started his acting career in 1939, he didn't completely abandon his dental background, and this proved to be incredibly useful during his years working on Petticoat Junction. The cast and crew quickly discovered that having a real dentist on set was like having their own personal medical professional available whenever dental emergencies arose during the long days of filming. The most memorable example of Buchanan putting his dental skills to work happened with his longtime stand-in, Jack Henderson, who had worked with the actor for 25 years. During production of the show, Henderson developed a serious tooth problem that was causing him significant pain and interfering with his ability to work. Rather than forcing Henderson to take time off to visit a dentist and potentially delay filming, Buchanan simply took care of the problem himself right there on the set, performing a tooth extraction using his professional dental training. This wasn't an isolated incident either, as Buchanan regularly provided dental care to various cast and crew members throughout his time on the show. His fellow actors and the production staff knew they could count on him for everything from temporary repairs to more serious dental procedures. In one instance, when actor MacDonald Carey broke a tooth during a fight scene while filming another movie, Buchanan created a temporary cap that allowed Carey to continue working without missing any filming days. Buchanan often joked that his dental practice had prepared him well for dealing with difficult situations, making his transition to handling temperamental actors and complicated filming schedules seem relatively easy by comparison. Fact 4. They recycled the same Christmas script twice. In what might be one of the most brazen examples of television recycling in history, the producers of Petticoat Junction took their popular Christmas episode from Season 1 and literally filmed it again 3 years later for Season 4, using the exact same script with only minor modifications. The original episode, titled Cannonball Christmas, aired in December of 1963 and featured the heartwarming story of the residents of Hooterville decorating their beloved train for Christmas caroling and gift delivery, only to have their plans threatened by the villainous Homer Bedloe. When Season 4 rolled around in 1966, the producers decided that instead of writing an entirely new Christmas episode, they would simply dust off the old script and film it again. This decision was partly motivated by the show's transition from black and white to color filming, which began in the 3rd season. The producers saw an opportunity to present the same beloved Christmas story in beautiful full color, knowing that audiences would be enchanted by seeing the Hooterville Cannonball decorated with hundreds of Christmas lights against a colorful backdrop. The most significant changes made to accommodate the recycled script involved the casting differences that had occurred over the 3 years between episodes. By Season 4, both Janine Riley and Pat Waddell, who had originally played sisters Billy Joe and Bobby Joe Bradley, had left the show and been replaced by different actresses. The producers simply had the new actresses, Meredith McRae and Laurie Saunders, perform the exact same dialogue and scenes that their predecessors had done 3 years earlier. The remake also added the character of Steve Elliott, who had joined the cast in the later seasons, giving him a few scenes that weren't in the original version. Other than these casting adjustments and the addition of color, the Santa Claus special was essentially identical to its black and white predecessor, complete with the same plot, the same jokes, and even many of the same camera angles and staging. Fact 5. The creator's daughter used a fake name. When Linda Henning landed the role of Betty Jo Bradley on Petticoat Junction, she wasn't just any aspiring young actress trying to make it in Hollywood. She was actually the daughter of Paul Henning, the show's creator and producer, which put both father and daughter in an extremely awkward position that required some creative problem-solving to avoid a potential scandal. Paul Henning was already a well-established television producer, having created the hugely successful Beverly Hillbillies before developing Petticoat Junction, and he was very aware of how the entertainment industry and the press would react if they discovered he had given his own daughter a starring role on his new show. The accusation of nepotism could have been devastating for both the show's credibility and Linda's budding acting career, potentially overshadowing any talent she brought to the role. To protect both himself and his daughter from these inevitable criticisms, Paul Henning made the decision that Linda would need to use a stage name that wouldn't immediately reveal their family connection. He was so concerned about avoiding nepotism accusations that he deliberately stayed out of the casting process for Betty Jo's character, ensuring that Linda would have to earn the role based on her own merits rather than family connections. Once Linda was cast, her father requested that she drop her last name entirely and instead use her middle name, which was Kay. However, Paul Henning had a sense of humor about the whole situation and suggested that his daughter add an extra letter to make it K instead of just K. His reasoning behind this spelling change was both practical and amusing. He thought that with her red hair and the last name K, people might assume she was related to the famous comedian and actor Danny Kaye rather than connecting her to the show's producer. This name change strategy worked so well that many viewers and even some industry professionals didn't realize Linda Kay was actually Paul Henning's daughter until years after the show had ended. Fact 6. One actor appeared on 3 shows simultaneously. Frank Cady achieved something that no other actor in television history has ever accomplished. He played the exact same character on 3 different television shows that were all airing at the same time. As Sam Drucker, the friendly general store owner in the fictional town of Hooterville, Cady became a familiar face to millions of viewers who watched him appear regularly on Petticoat Junction, Green Acres, and the Beverly Hillbillies throughout the 1960s. This remarkable situation came about because all 3 shows were created by the same producer, Paul Henning, and were set in the same fictional universe centered around rural American life. Henning had envisioned these shows as interconnected stories that shared characters and locations, with Hooterville serving as the common setting that tied them all together. Sam Drucker's general store became the central hub where characters from all 3 shows would meet and interact, making him an essential part of each program's storytelling. What made Cady's situation so unique wasn't just that he appeared on multiple shows, but that he was playing the identical character with the same personality, relationships, and backstory across all 3 programs. When viewers saw Sam Drucker on Petticoat Junction, he was the same person they knew from Green Acres and the Beverly Hillbillies, complete with all his established friendships and local knowledge of Hooterville's residents. Between 1968 and 1969, when all 3 shows were running simultaneously, Cady found himself working on 3 different television productions while maintaining perfect consistency in his portrayal of Sam Drucker. He had to keep track of different storylines and ensure that his character's actions and knowledge on one show didn't contradict what was happening on the other 2 programs. This unprecedented scheduling arrangement required careful coordination between the production teams of all 3 shows, and Cady had to master the art of seamlessly transitioning between different casts and crews while never breaking character as the beloved Hooterville shopkeeper. Fact 7. The show's title came from skinny dipping. The innocent-sounding title Petticoat Junction actually has its origins in a rather risque backstory that most family viewers of the 1960s would never have suspected. The name doesn't refer to an actual railroad junction where train lines meet, but instead comes from a much more playful and somewhat scandalous local nickname that the townspeople had given to their train stop. According to the show's backstory, the 3 Bradley sisters had a habit of cooling off during hot summer days by taking refreshing swims in the large wooden water tower that supplied water to the steam locomotives passing through their small town. This water tower, which was a common feature at railroad stops during the era of steam trains, provided the perfect private swimming hole for the young women who lived at the nearby Shady Rest Hotel. The problem with this swimming arrangement was that the sisters needed somewhere to put their clothes while they were in the water, and the most convenient place happened to be draped over the edge of the water tower itself. Since women in that era wore petticoats as undergarments beneath their dresses, these delicate white garments would end up hanging prominently from the side of the water tower for all the train passengers and crew members to see as they pulled into the station. Over time, the train engineers, conductors, and regular passengers began referring to this particular stop as Petticoat Junction because of the distinctive sight of women's undergarments fluttering in the breeze whenever the Bradley sisters were taking their afternoon swim. The opening credits of the television show actually featured this exact scene, showing the petticoats hanging over the side of the water tower while the sisters were presumably swimming just out of view of the camera. This playful explanation for the show's title managed to hint at something slightly naughty while still maintaining the wholesome, family-friendly atmosphere that made the program so popular with viewers of all ages. Fact 8. The dog had no name for years. One of the most beloved characters on Petticoat Junction was the adorable family dog who appeared in 152 episodes throughout the show's 7-year run. But for most of the series, this furry star existed in a strange state of namelessness that confused both viewers and the production team. Throughout the majority of the show, the characters simply referred to their 4-legged companion as Dog, treating this generic description as if it were actually his proper name. The situation became even more puzzling because the dog's real name was actually Higgins, and he was a talented animal actor who had been professionally trained for television and film work. However, despite having a perfectly good name, the writers and producers seemed unable to decide what the character should be called on screen, leading to years of awkward dialogue where people would say things like, "Here dog" or "Good boy dog," instead of using an actual name. Producer Paul Henning was well aware of this odd situation and had originally planned to solve the problem by holding a viewer contest where fans could submit suggestions for what the dog should be named on the show. This seemed like a perfect way to engage the audience while finally giving the popular character a proper identity. But for reasons that were never clearly explained, the contest never actually happened, and the naming issue remained unresolved. The confusion reached its peak during the 5th season, when an episode titled Higgins Come Home aired in January of 1968, which seemed to finally acknowledge the dog's real name. However, even in this episode, the title itself was never spoken aloud by any of the characters, and they continued to refer to him simply as Dog throughout the dialogue, maintaining the strange tradition that had developed over the previous seasons. This nameless situation persisted until the show ended, making Higgins one of the few television characters to remain officially unnamed, despite being a central part of the family. Fact 9. The famous train was already a movie star. The Hooterville Cannonball, which served as one of the most important characters on Petticoat Junction, was actually a seasoned Hollywood veteran long before it ever chugged its way into television history. The real locomotive that portrayed the fictional train in all the outdoor shots and traveling scenes was Sierra Railroad No. 3, a genuine steam engine that had already established itself as one of the most photographed and recognizable trains in the entertainment industry. Built by the Rogers Locomotive and Machine Works in Paterson, New Jersey, back in 1891, Sierra No. 3 had been working in movies and television for decades before Petticoat Junction even existed. This authentic steam locomotive had appeared in countless Western films, becoming the go-to train whenever Hollywood needed an old-fashioned locomotive that could convincingly represent the American frontier era. Some of Sierra No. 3's most famous appearances before joining the Petticoat Junction cast included starring roles in classic Western movies like High Noon, where it appeared alongside Gary Cooper and Grace Kelly in the iconic 1952 film. The locomotive also had significant screen time in The Virginian and many other Western productions, always playing the part of authentic period transportation that helped bring these frontier stories to life. What made Sierra No. 3 so valuable to filmmakers was that it was still a fully operational steam locomotive, capable of actually running on railroad tracks and producing real steam and authentic train sounds. This meant that when viewers saw the Hooterville Cannonball traveling through the countryside in the opening credits or during episodes, they were watching genuine locomotive footage rather than special effects or fake steam. The train's Hollywood career didn't end with Petticoat Junction either. After the show concluded, Sierra No. 3 continued appearing in movies and television shows, including later Western films and even the Back to the Future movie series, proving that this particular locomotive had truly become one of the most successful animal actors in entertainment history. Fact 10. They changed theme song lyrics when the star died. When B. Benaderet, who played the beloved matriarch Kate Bradley, passed away from lung cancer in October of 1968, the producers of Petticoat Junction faced an unprecedented challenge that went beyond just recasting or writing around a missing character. They also had to figure out what to do about the show's opening theme song, which specifically mentioned Kate by name and described her as the person who ran the Shady Rest Hotel. The original theme song lyrics had cheerfully informed viewers that there was a little hotel called the Shady Rest at the Junction, and that it was run by Kate, inviting everyone to come and be her guest at the Junction. These words were sung over footage of the train and the hotel during every episode's opening credits, making Kate's role as the proprietress an integral part of the show's identity that viewers heard and saw each week. After Benaderet's death, the producers decided to continue the series with Edgar Buchanan's character, Uncle Joe Carson, taking over as the main adult figure running the hotel. This meant that the theme song needed to be updated to reflect this major change in the show's structure, so they brought back the original singer to record new lyrics that would match the revised storyline. The updated version changed the key line to say that the hotel was run by Joe, inviting viewers to come and be his guest at the Junction instead. This lyrical modification was accompanied by changes to the opening credits that now featured Uncle Joe more prominently, showing him taking on his new responsibilities as the hotel's manager. When actress June Lockhart joined the cast in the final seasons as Dr. Janet Craig, the producers created yet another version of the theme song that included lyrics specifically about the lady medical doctor, describing her as being as pretty as can be at the Junction. This third iteration of the theme song ensured that the opening credits continued to accurately represent the current cast and storyline throughout the show's remaining episodes. Fact 11. 6 different actresses played just 2 characters. Petticoat Junction holds the unusual distinction of being one of the most heavily recast shows in television history, with an astonishing 6 different actresses portraying just 2 of the Bradley sisters over the course of 7 seasons. This constant shuffling of performers created a confusing situation for viewers who had to keep track of completely different faces playing the same characters, sometimes with drastically altered personalities to match the new actresses. The role of Billie Jo Bradley, the flirtatious blonde daughter, was portrayed by 3 different actresses during the show's run. Janine Riley originated the character in the first 2 seasons, establishing Billie Jo as a boy-crazy playgirl who was more interested in dating than helping around the hotel. When Riley left to pursue movie opportunities, she was replaced by Swedish-born actress Gunilla Hutton for the 3rd season, but Hutton missed several episodes due to health problems and was ultimately replaced by Meredith MacRae, who played the role from season 4 until the series ended. Similarly, the character of Bobby Jo Bradley went through 3 different actresses over the show's lifetime. Pat Waddell played her as a studious, bookworm type during the first 2 seasons, but when Waddell left to pursue a singing career, Laurie Saunders took over the role in season 3 and continued through the final season. However, the character's personality was completely transformed to match Saunders' acting style, turning Bobby Jo from a quiet intellectual into a fun-loving, somewhat boy-crazy young woman. What made this recasting situation even more bizarre was that by the end of the series, the personalities of Billie Jo and Bobby Jo had essentially switched from what they were in the beginning. The character who started as the flirty one became more serious and career-focused, while the one who began as the studious type became the more frivolous sister, creating a complete reversal that reflected the different strengths and characteristics of the various actresses who played these roles. Fact 12. The studio locomotive was recycled movie prop. The elaborate locomotive that appeared in all the interior scenes of Petticoat Junction wasn't actually built specifically for the television show, but was instead a recycled movie prop that had already enjoyed a successful Hollywood career more than a decade earlier. This impressive replica train had originally been constructed by 20th Century Fox in 1950 for the musical comedy film A Ticket to Tomahawk, which starred Dan Daly, Walter Brennan, Rory Calhoun, and even a young Marilyn Monroe in one of her early roles. Built from a combination of wood, fiberglass, and metal materials, this studio mock-up was designed to be a detailed replica of Rio Grande Southern Locomotive No. 20, though in the original movie it portrayed a fictional train called the Emma Sweeney. The prop was incredibly elaborate for its time, featuring authentic-looking details both inside and outside the locomotive cab that could convince audiences they were seeing a real working steam engine, even when it was sitting motionless on a soundstage. The original construction cost for this studio train in 1950 was an impressive $40,000, which would be equivalent to several $100,000 in today's money, demonstrating just how much effort and expense went into creating this single movie prop. After A Ticket to Tomahawk finished production, the locomotive replica was sold to Harvey Dick, who used it as a decorative piece in the Barbary Coast Lounge at his Hoyt Hotel in Portland, Oregon. When the producers of Petticoat Junction needed a train for their new television series, they discovered this impressive prop sitting in the hotel lobby and arranged to lease it for their production. This arrangement worked out so well that Harvey Dick received a prominent credit at the end of every episode, acknowledging that the train was furnished by Barbary Coast Hoyt Hotel, Portland, Oregon, giving his business years of free advertising in exchange for lending out his unusual lobby decoration. Fact 13. The train number changed to allow flipped film. Viewers who paid close attention to the Hooterville Cannonball throughout Petticoat Junction's 7-year run might have noticed something peculiar about the locomotive's identification number that changed partway through the series. During the first few seasons, the train clearly displayed the number 3 on its front number plate. But in later seasons, that same locomotive mysteriously carried the number 8 instead, creating a continuity puzzle that seemed to make no logical sense within the show's storyline. The explanation for this seemingly random change had nothing to do with the fictional railroad company acquiring a new locomotive or any plot-related reason that viewers might have imagined. Instead, this alteration was made for purely practical filmmaking purposes that related to how the production team edited and assembled the train footage that appeared in each episode. When filming the outdoor scenes of the Hooterville Cannonball traveling through the California countryside, the camera crew would capture the locomotive moving in both directions along the railroad tracks to give them maximum flexibility when editing episodes. However, sometimes the footage they needed showed the train traveling in the wrong direction for a particular scene, which meant they had to flip the film horizontally to make it appear as if the locomotive was moving the opposite way. The problem with flipping film footage is that any numbers or letters visible in the shot also get reversed, which would make the number 3 appear backwards and obviously fake to viewers watching at home. To solve this issue, the production team decided to change the locomotive's number from 3 to 8. Because the number 8 looks exactly the same whether it's viewed normally or flipped horizontally, thanks to its perfectly symmetrical shape. This clever technical solution allowed the editors to use train footage traveling in either direction without worrying about creating obvious visual mistakes that would break the illusion for viewers, demonstrating how even the smallest details in television production sometimes require creative problem-solving behind the scenes. Fact 14. The hotel was based on the producer's wife's childhood. The charming Shady Rest Hotel that served as the central setting for Petticoat Junction wasn't just a product of Paul Henning's imagination, but was actually based on real childhood memories and experiences that came directly from his own family. The inspiration for the fictional hotel came from stories that Henning's wife, Ruth, had told him about her summer visits to her grandmother's establishment in the small town of Eldon, Missouri. During her youth, Ruth Henning's grandmother owned and operated a real hotel called the Burris Hotel, which was strategically located right next to the train station in Eldon, making it a convenient stopping point for travelers who arrived by railroad. This small-town hotel served the same function as the fictional Shady Rest, providing meals and lodging for visitors, while also serving as a social hub for the local community where people would gather to share news and gossip. During her childhood summers, Ruth would stay with her grandmother at the Burris Hotel, where she witnessed firsthand the colorful cast of characters who passed through the establishment. She experienced the daily rhythms of small-town hotel life, from preparing meals for guests to dealing with the various personalities and situations that arose when strangers from different backgrounds found themselves staying under the same roof. These vivid childhood memories became the foundation for Paul Henning's vision of what life might be like at a rural hotel during a simpler time in American history. Ruth would regale her husband with stories about the eccentric guests, the challenges of running a family business, and the warm sense of community that developed among the hotel's regular visitors and local townspeople. The authenticity that viewers felt when watching Petticoat Junction came directly from these genuine experiences that Ruth had lived through as a young girl, giving the fictional Shady Rest Hotel a sense of reality that resonated with audiences who recognized the universal themes of family, community, and small-town hospitality. Fact 15. The cast dumped their boots in the ocean. The demanding world of television promotional appearances sometimes pushed even the most professional actors to their breaking point, as demonstrated by a memorable incident involving the actresses who played the Bradley sisters during a promotional tour for Petticoat Junction. The exhausting schedule of public appearances and performances finally became too much for the young women during what would become one of the most spontaneous acts of rebellion in television promotion history. The incident occurred during a promotional stop in Atlantic City, where the actresses were scheduled to perform multiple shows in a single day as part of a major publicity blitz designed to promote the television series to East Coast audiences. The grueling schedule included a matinee performance followed by 2 separate evening shows, each featuring singing, dancing, and other entertainment designed to showcase the stars and generate excitement for the program. As part of their promotional costume, the actresses were required to wear distinctive white thigh-high boots that were specifically chosen to create a memorable visual impression for the audience. While these boots may have looked fashionable and eye-catching from the audience's perspective, they proved to be extremely uncomfortable for the performers who had to wear them through multiple shows and extended periods of standing, singing, and dancing. By the time the final evening performance concluded, the actresses had reached their limit with these troublesome boots that had been causing them discomfort throughout the entire day. In a moment of shared frustration and exhaustion, the young women made a collective decision to express their feelings about the uncomfortable footwear in the most dramatic way possible. Rather than simply removing the boots and packing them away with their other promotional materials, the actresses walked to the nearby Atlantic Ocean and ceremoniously threw the white thigh-high boots directly into the water, effectively ensuring that they would never have to wear those particular pieces of promotional wardrobe ever again, creating a memorable moment of rebellion against the sometimes demanding nature of show business publicity tours.